circumstances. To prove his theory, and spurred by perhaps his own unease and jealousy of her affection towards her child, Erasmus kills cruelly the infant Mannion and sterilizes Serena. Broken in spirit and enraged, Butler lashes out and destroys an attending robot. This act of resistance inspires many Hrethgeir slaves. The innocent Mannion Butler becomes a martyr and rallying cry, and Serena's violence spurs open revolt. Aggression is harnessed and channeled by Ginjo, who calls on all Hrethgeir to rise up in Mannion's name. Rebellion consumes the planet, but is ultimately suppressed with the slaughter of every last human, but not before Serena, Ginjo, and others escape to League space. This is an atrocity the level of which cannot be countenanced nor go unpunished. The news stokes a surge of anti-machine sentiment within the League of Nobles as has never been seen. A fanatical movement spreads that sees AI as anathema to human existence and believes its complete eradication to be work of the devout and holy. This crusade, using Serena Butler as their figurehead and her child Mannion as the first divine martyr, adopts the name Butlerian Jihad and launches the League into frenzied attacks against Omnius in 200 BG. The Jihad is an inflection point in human history which leaves an indelible mark on the psyche of the species as deep religion and profound dread of thinking machines are married, birthing a movement not easily forgotten. The Butlerian Jihad signifies the beginning of the end in the war with thinking machines. As conflict reaches a fever pitch, technological breakthroughs escalate its destructive potential. Brilliant minds unlock for the League devastating atomics, weapons capable of vaporizing entire planets, as well as shielding devices to protect starships in battle, and the first primitive space-folding engines that open instantaneous travel across charted space. All of these technologies will continue to shape human conduct for thousands of years. With such destruction, the League and jihadists retaliate in the Battle of Earth. Atomics render the surface to slag, destroy all machines present, and obliterate the ancient home of humanity. Grave is the symbolism that's implied, the loss of cultural identity, the severed ties to the old ways, a freedom to reforge what it means to be human. Following the conflict of Earth, battles for star systems grow more frequent. Omnius secures a world only to have the League destroy another. Thinking machines unleash deadly viruses and contagions to wither human flesh. But after a coordinated atomic strike against many synchronized worlds, the Army of the Jihad, as it is now called, isolates and traps Omnius Prime on the planet Corin. The conclusive battle in the war erupts in the space surrounding the planet in 88 BG as all forces consolidate in the Battle of Corin. Empowered by their advancements, the League of Nobles pierces machine defenses and lands a killing blow on the Omnius mainframe, eradicating the Evermind from machine networks and rendering all thinking machines inert. After 1,000 years of AI tyranny, humanity liberates itself from technology. The League declares victory and incorporates the synchronized worlds once more into a single, unified empire. The House of Butler, crucial in the war effort and famous for its martyrs, adopts the name Carino to commemorate victory and in the aftermath ascends to the newly established imperial seat. This marks the founding of a dynasty that will go on to rule for 10,000 years. Though humanity triumphs over Omnius, the Battle of Carino and the war's fallout ripple throughout time and cascade with significance. Anti-machine resentment lingers as remnants of the Butlerian Jihad and zealous cultists, fearful of AI's return, scour from humankind all artifice stained by thinking machines. This not only sets the species technologically back thousands of years, but also destroys stores of humanity's ancient history. A dark age of ignorance and superstition slowly descends upon an empire that regresses towards neo-feudalism. The League of Nobles is disbanded. Its spiritual successor, the Landsraad League, establishes a hierarchy of houses great and minor. Thus begins a period of uncertainty and instability for the nascent empire, which must, for the first time in millennia, rely on itself rather than machines. To help administer, deliberate, and shepherd humanity, the Mentat schools and Bene Gesserit order are founded. Mentats are trained as human supercomputers meant to replace the computational power required of machines. The Bene Gesserit are descendants from sorceresses of the planet Rosak and possessed superhuman abilities, due in large part to genetic manipulation and artificial selection. Their codices of human genomes and bloodlines are paramount in the sisterhood's purpose: survival and evolution of the human species. At this time, in an attempt to unite disparate peoples under rule of one emperor, a single religion is adopted, and its written work, the Orange Catholic Bible, is penned. The Bible's supreme commandments echo with Butlerian jihad sentiment. Thou shalt not disfigure the soul, and thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind. Most significantly, the war's aftermath sees the foundation of the Spacing Guild. This political and commercial entity, hoarding the secrets of safely navigating space folds through use of limited future sight, offered by ingestion of Arrakis' spice melange, quickly establishes for itself a monopoly on all safe interstellar travel. In the year 1 AG, it ushers in a welcomed era of relative stability from the ashes of volatility. The Guild peace, as it's known, lasts far into the future. The second epoch of human history reaches twilight in the shadow of turmoil. Mankind had been imprisoned by technology. It suffered the horrors of machine dominance, the scars of which remain following bloody liberation. A new empire, a new social order rises to assert control in uncertain times. It looks with hope to the future while destroying its dark past. The third epoch of human events is colored by fearful reprehension of past ways, by aversion of technology due to scars suffered, and by an establishment of a new humanity. As one would expect given Dune's dating system, this era is dominated by the nascent Spacing Guild and House Code. Both institutions race to solidify, then expand their basis of power. The new imperial seat finds itself impotent in the first years of its reign, embroiled in civil war between the fanatical Butlerian movement, whose flames still flicker, the wealthy magnate corporation Venki Enterprises, and the Lion Throne. A civil war breaks that lasts several years, but comes to a decisive end after the Battle of Lampadas, the consequences of which see the Butlerian leadership weakened, Venki dissolved, and the Lion Throne strengthened. Subsidiaries of the mega-corporation evolve into the commercial titan Chum and the Spacing Guild of Navigators. The Guild's monopolization of spacefaring and commerce prevents all happenings throughout the Empire without their approval. Any faction or territory that goes against them would be severed from the rest of the Empire and crumble in isolation. The enforced stability of the Guild peace is strengthened in the 1st century AG by the Charter of the Landsraad Great Convention. This document banishes use of atomics against other humans. And again, 2 centuries later, the Assassin's Handbook sets foundational rules for acceptable modes of warfare to minimize collateral damage. These 3 prohibitions on violent destruction allow humanity to recover from war's horror and build a resolute empire. Its structure largely mimics that of humankind's ancient Middle Ages, where counts and dukes pay homage to their emperor in exchange for administration of vast swaths of space. Soldiers are armed with blades once more, as shielding technology renders laser guns perilously destructive, and the prohibition of atomic weapons directs conflict once more to pitched battles of mustered legions. During this period, the Bene Gesserit work in secret through dubious breeding programs intent on elevating the human race and birthing their chosen one, the Kwisatz Haderach, the one who can be many places at once. Kwisatz project consumes sisterhood focus for thousands of years, and the Order slowly works to gather notoriety, influence, and power by infiltrating all levels of imperial politics and manipulating from the shadows. A socio-political tripod emerges that balances the empire for thousands of years between the forces of House Carino and their legions of deadly imperial Sardaukar warriors, the great houses of the Landsraad, and the navigators of the Spacing Guild. The spice on planet Arrakis, crucial to navigation and therefore all else, transforms this backwater world into the Empire's most valued fief. Houses Great and Minor engage in assassination and intrigue to seize greater holdings within Chom and to secure imperial lands from the Lion Throne. It becomes a time of posturing, of covert strikes against rivals, and ingratiation for imperial largesse. The Empire's cultural and societal workings now become firmly established. It's an empire of corruption and dark ambition, an empire of technological and governmental stagnation, an empire of stable predictability. This all is threatened, however, around 10,000 AG, after countless centuries of House Carino rule. Several worlds balk at the actions of their emperors, and revolts arise across the galaxies. The venerable House Atreides, an old family whose legacy goes back to the legendary days of war with thinking machines, dispatches its armies as a show of loyalty to assist Imperial Sardaukar in crushing rebellions. The Emperor Elrud IX, emboldened by his victory, seeks out another enemy of House Carino, the Spacing Guild, and their damnable monopoly on travel. In 10,154 AG, Elrud coordinates with the bioengineers on planet Tleilax, the Project Amal, a secret attempt to artificially synthesize spice that, if successful, would free the Empire from its dependence on Arrakis and the suffocating Guild. Though Elrud is poisoned by his ambitious, pragmatic son Shaddam IV, the new emperor continues his father's vision and instigates the Great Spice War in 10175 AG. In tandem with Project Amal, the war is a ploy meant to destroy or capture all major spice stores in the Empire, a masterful maneuver to increase demand for Amal's synthetic spice and eliminate houses that threaten Shaddam. The war ends disastrously for House Carino, though, as Project Amal fails to produce spice alternatives, and many House Spice stores go undiminished. The Emperor retreats in disgrace as the Guild monopoly continues. The following years set the backdrop of the original Dune storyline. House Harkonnen and House Atreides, rivals for millennia, are constantly at each other's throats. Shaddam, fearful of Duke Leto's influence within the Landsraad, plots with Baron Vladimir Harkonnen to destroy the line of Atreides. Meanwhile, the Bene Gesserit breeding program produces in the Duke's young son Paul Atreides the promise of the Kwisatz Haderach. Great forces stir within the Empire, a powder keg of violent potential that explodes in 10191 AG with the Desert War of Arrakis, the events of which are expounded in depth in Dune, so will only be discussed in brief. Dominoes fall as House Atreides, who have taken ownership of the Arrakis fief, are betrayed by the Emperor. Shaddam sees in Leto the greatest threat to his rule, and so works to terminate his house. Sardaukar and Harkonnen forces invade Arrakis and eradicate the Atreides, but not before Paul and his Bene Gesserit mother, the Lady Jessica, escape into the desert, where they are captured and accepted by Fremen, the local population of Arrakis. Paul, fashioned as the Fremen messianic figure by centuries of Bene Gesserit socio-religious manipulation, adopts the name Muad'Dib and rallies all tribes to his cause, to liberate Arrakis from the treacherous Harkonnens and even from the Empire. As the purported Kwisatz Haderach, Paul is possessed of innate superhuman skill, activated and amplified when he ingests the spice melange. Paul has the power of the Oracle. He seems able to pierce the veil of time and space, and if not read the future, shape it to his whims. The superior fighting skill of the desert folk, combined with Paul's supernatural abilities, secure Atreides' victory on Arrakis. The Desert War ends, as does the rule of House Carino and our third epoch, in the year 10193 HE. Paul exiles Shaddam and accedes to the throne. His control of Arrakis' spice cows the Spacing Guild into acquiescence, and Paul stands at the summit of glory in command of the greatest military force the Empire has known in eons. This era closes with one great house fallen and another arisen. Gone are the days of the Carino Empire. Long will be the days of the Atreides Empire. The Atreides Empire is founded in destruction, baptized in the blood and fire of religious jihad. Paul, unable to control the ardent zeal stoked within every Fremen heart by his messianic actions, is brandished savior of the desert and lauded as the chosen one. He directs their fury through a religious movement impossible to contain, called Muad'Dib's Jihad. From 10194 AG to 10205 AG, conflict consumes the Empire as fanatical legions of Fremen warriors slaughter billions and crush resistance to Paul on several planets. The Jihad not only solidifies House Atreides' position on the Imperial throne, but intensifies the mystique of Muad'Dib and greatly expands his religion. Proselytizing Fremen convert worlds by the sword as subjects are made to see in their ruler signs of divine. An institutionalized religion, the religion of the Golden Elixir, is established in Paul's name on Arrakis, from which his Quizarate clergy administer and disseminate propaganda. Arrakis becomes both the secular and religious center of the Empire as Paul relocates the imperial court, a destination for pilgrims and sycophants alike. Muad'Dib's Jihad ends after the Fremen deliver 10,000 worlds to the Atreides Empire, sterilize 90 planets, and demoralize hundreds more through the bloodletting of 61 billion lives. The Messiah's rule comes to an end, however, when attempted assassination leaves Paul blind. As Fremen custom dictates, the blind are given to the desert, and Muad'Dib willingly walks into the open dunes to be consumed by its sands. Paul Atreides, though he altered history and stirred the universe, possessed great foresight, but he was unable to see the entirety of human future. He was unable to accept fate and become the ultimate Kwisatz Haderach. He leaves in succession his young twins, Ghanima and Leto. His sister Alia establishes a regency council until the twins reach majority. The next decade is witness to various plots within the imperial house as rival factions vie for custody of the twins, while outside conspirators move to assassinate them. Then, in 10217 AG, guided by his own oracular visions and possessed of superhuman abilities after merging his body with those of Dune's sandworm larvae, Leto wrests control of House Atreides and ascends to the Lion Throne as Leto II. This marks the first year of a reign that lasts over 30 centuries and comes to be known as the God Emperor's tyranny. This long stretch of human history is marked by transformation, as many peoples, institutions, and planets metamorphose. Leto II embarks on his golden path, the path his father refused to take, a prescient vision that lights the only way towards humanity's salvation against the danger of space and time. If humankind is led astray, Leto knows that the species will eventually go extinct. To realize this path of hope, Leto must rule in absolute oppression. First, he accrues a personal monopoly on spice. Through paltry offerings from his own horde, the God Emperor controls the Spacing Guild, the Bene Gesserit, and other once powerful factions. Leto dissolves Mentat schools and usurps control of the Sisterhood's breeding program. He establishes an all-female and unquestioningly obedient military known as the Fish Speakers to enact his will. Such forced stability and tyranny leads to a time of calm, known as Leto's Peace, as all cower before their omnipotent emperor. Leto himself undergoes physical transformation as his body begins the long process of metamorphosis. His humanity seamlessly intertwines with the sand trout's skin coating his body, and over millennia, Leto is horribly disfigured, twisted to assume the form of a sandworm. Though it grants great power and longevity, the transformation destroys what little humanity remains in Leto. As for the planet Arrakis, it too undergoes a transformative terraforming at Leto's behest. Thousands of years of climate manipulation turn the drab oranges and browns of desiccated sands into vibrant blues and greens of lush verdure. No longer a harsh, unforgiving planet, Arrakis becomes paradise. As a result, sandworms die out and no new spice can be harvested, further increasing pressure and dependence on the God Emperor's auspices. The desert dies out, so too do its Fremen. The once fierce folk that spread religious jihad in days long forgotten have lost their lifeblood, lost connection to their fundamental roots. Fremen ways and warriors mutate, if not cease entirely. A dismal mockery of their existence is preserved by Leto II as museum Fremen who are held on exhibition for entertainment and education. These soft people mindlessly mime ancestral customs. It's not just the Fremen that Leto suffocates with his tyranny. So too are the ancient orders threatened by extinction from the God Emperor's control of spice. The Spacing Guild